Hello everyone, I'm Xiao Gang. Okay, today we're working on our project, right? We'll simply do some basic setup and optimization for the project. Then I'll go over some details with you. This part is our sequence. We have some levels and some actors, and we'll give them a sequence number. Note that doing this will prompt a warning about a potential issue, but it's okay. We'll do it anyway. The main reason is to add a prefix and address some naming issues. This way, we can avoid later on not knowing how to find this thing. But you should note that you can do this in Blueprint, because Blueprint is a bit more forgiving. If you rename your classes in C++, it will cause some problems, meaning your Blueprint won't be able to find your C++ class. Then all your Blueprint information, the entire Blueprint graph will be ruined. So don't do it in C++. But you can do it another way. After you rename the C++ file, you can use core redirect, which is redirection to do it. That is the file. This is the code, a redirect, but don't do this, because after many project redirects, this information will become slower, because redirects are like that. So we usually don't touch C++. Then, after you do this, there will be many such redirectors. Let's fix it. Pay attention. This must be fixed, especially after making some changes to assets. You can see here, this place is already empty. We can manually delete it. The same goes for this U function, and our U interface is the same. Then we changed it again here. Maybe we didn't write it in the most standard way at first, but later we tried to make it as standard as possible. Because this thing is not a project. It's a demo, so it involves a lot of things. Let's fix this redirect. Then we'll just delete these 3 files, because they are already empty. Okay. Then usually after you move the position, especially in a level actor, remember to check your project settings. The most common one is our game mode, because after you roll, it will change. It will disappear. It will be lost, because its original position is. It is configured through II. There's no way to change it. So here you need to manually fix it. Then, for example, common game mode and game instance. These all need attention. These are common places that can easily cause renaming or issues. So when we add it here, how do we add our starter content? Actually, we can add it in this way. Here, you can see, we directly add a start content in this place. This is our starter pack. Since we already have a C++ project, we don't really need to. We imported it in one day. Here, and there are some naps here. Right, we won't change the names to avoid problems. Okay, generally for assets like this, for example, like this one, it has some points compiled here, and for assets from the Unreal Marketplace, or assets given to you by others, we usually create a folder like this. This folder has no external dependencies. This folder will not depend on them. That is, internally, it may have mutual dependencies. It will only depend on the engine or its internal components. This ensures that such a folder, when you copy it to other project, can also be used simply. You see, right, this is the relationship we want, right? No problem at all. Okay, so for this part, actually, our current assets have already been imported in this place. We need to find a location. Here we'll write 007. Okay, this is because we're using this input method. With this input method, when switching between Chinese and English, it tends to, how to put it? It will insert a single quotation mark for you. So this problem exists. You can try using a different input method. As far as I know, some input methods don't have this problem. And this time, for our quick start, let's just paste this level over directly. It seems this material is missing. If it's missing, let's just ignore it. As for this place, we'll also copy a level. We'll just copy this level with Control plus C. Then we'll put it here. We'll just place it here directly. Then we'll change the name. Note that regarding this name, all these names are case insensitive. For example, if you write an MM here, so actually in UE it considers MM and MM to be the same. this F is LAMK sensitive. This will cause problems with our gate. If you have these two assets in your view, they are doing it this way might cause problems. For example, you should try to avoid this kind of avoid using case to differentiate between different assets. The standard naming convention for our assets is a prefix, then the asset name. For example, here we call it QuickStart, right? Then after that comes the suffix. That is its variant, san, or indicate its purpose. It's about lighting, or is it about narrative, or some shadows, or is it still about lighting? Yes, so we can just use this one. Let's start it. Hey, 强国. Then here we change the editors. The full map again. It's right here. In project 30 point. And then here, this map should be called Quick Start. Okay, after we finish doing this, we now need to add our CCI plus light. So we will add it in this way. Check to make sure our downs, 里边 should all be turned off. Just turn them off. Also, some UE5 settings might be something like that after thing. Turn this off too. Don't let it auto-compile. Yes. Alright. Good. Okay. Now let's add a C++ class. And for this class, we will have it inherited from actor. Okay, our module. You see, there is a module here. Does this semi-2 mean we created a plotchai in the previous chapters? You can see it can be placed under this module of the plugin. Looking at this path, everyone should understand, right? This path is actually, it is this path under this master's, right? And if you click public here, then it will create the header file here and create the DH file in this location. You see, right? Pay attention. We need to put the header file into public. Point H to his put CPP into public, but we don't need it now. We are inside the project, so we put it here. Then we don't need this public. We can see if this path is incorrect, we should be here. We have many projects after this project. We will make it into corresponding content and share it with everyone. Yes, right? Here we create a new folder. Let's call it Quick Start. Okay, if we create it here, note that we created C++ content. We don't need to bring this front seat. We'll just do it like this. FloatingActor. Okay, now we create it. Okay, maybe I'm being a bit verbose here because this is the first case. I still go into a bit more detail. We'll speed up as much as possible later. Actually here, let's wait a moment now. Okay, it is adding a project here. And it says it must recompile. Then it asks if you want to edit code. We can ignore it. We just erased it like this. Then we go back to our VS. Okay, let's reload it. Then you wait a moment for it to finish reloading. Then at this point, we start adding some simple properties to our loading class. Actually, in this case, let's see how it's written. It's placed inside public. So we'll write it the same way. Actually, sometimes we wouldn't put the component in this position because putting it here, putting it in public is fine. This is not a very good way to write it, like this. Then in this case, we need a pointer like this. Then next, we go to our C++. I'll just use @+all to do a simple switch. First, in our tick function, we need to enable the tick because I will use the tick functionality later. Then during performance optimization, we can turn it off. So at this point, we need to create an object. Do you still remember how to create an object? Obviously, we have two ways. In our constructor function, we can just create it through that. You can see this is a method in object.h. It creates a component or a subobject. Then it will materialize. Then materialize, yes, and here it is a template. So this place needs to be specified, the return type of this object, and this allows specifying the name of this component and whether it is transient. It is a temporary one. Yeah. Okay, so after we create a component like this, then we need to add a root component here. This set attachment, just attach it to the root component. Actually, we know that. We corrected a problem here before. That is, if we don't have this root component in C++, if we don't specify the root component for this actor, problems will occur. Let's check if doing this will cause any issues. The way I suggest writing it should be like this. You can directly set this root compound. Just set this compound equal to it. Directly set it equal to this. Yes, just set it equal to this. But for this part, we'll still follow its original writing style. Let's write it and see whether it will cause the problem we demonstrated earlier. Okay, here we are. This is where we load the resource. We do not recommend writing it this way. Where does this path come from? We will start it up for everyone in a moment. Demonstrate it in the edit project. How is this path derived? It actually corresponds to this path of ours. Let us show everyone. But this path is quite complex because this type of path is often used during hot reloading. That is when we use this kind of path. Normally, everyone should absolutely not write it this way. This part is content. Content is actually our game. Then it is start content, and then this is in shape. Shape is in the shape area. Then there is a shape here. Shape cube. Shape cube. It is in this shape cube inside this package. To find the asset of this shape cube, you see, that's what it means. Because a package may contain many assets, it must specify this asset. This is a way of writing a block package, a way of writing this path. Then at this point, let's take a look here. Whether it has been loaded successfully. Whether this thing has been loaded successfully, right. Then after successful loading, then we get its UObject. This UObject is the object you found. That is, if we can find it this way. Then we let this object be used by this get message. At the same time, we set this object's relative position. Just like our anchor port 2, 0 for begin play, we must remember to call this super begin play. We won't write anything else. For tick, actually, here we must call super tick. The standard practice has to call them first. Then here, let's get the current actor location. Then get the current rotation. And here, let's get the current time. We can take a look at this function. This function is inside the actor. This time actually gets the world where the actor is located. This world. Then get this world. Then they do that is, get this. Take a look at its comment. It says in game time. That is, after the actor is created. Then, based on this, it is related to the game time. Yes, you see this place. Let's take a look below like this. And this thing is called word locally. Then, this is equivalent to when the game starts. It will keep running. This time should be the time when the actor is created. Yes. So, actually, subtracting these two times gives the time that this actor itself has elapsed. If nothing unexpected happens, that should be the meaning. Okay. Good. So let's continue moving forward. Here. So here is a delta height is basically a floating value. This is a sine, and then these two numbers of the sine. These two numbers. This DeltaTime is this. The time of this frame. Yes. Then let's continue going down. Okay, let's continue pasting it. This is equivalent to you just take this time factor, blend it into this height change, and then here, it essentially multiplies this coefficient by when it reaches 20 times. Okay, here, directly take this data time, multiply this data time by 20. This way, it is equivalent to multiplying the rotation for each frame, the rotation amplitude by 20. Doing it this way. Then finally, just add all these values together. This tick is equivalent to multiplying this thing by 20, making it rotate this much every frame. And here, it makes it rotate every frame, change such a high degree. Then this value will fluctuate back and forth. Then after we calculate the value for this frame, we set it back. Actually, in this place, we have written the simplest version. Now let's start it and check the effect. Let's take a look at the effect. And here, in this place. Take a look. We can open this asset and let it repair. There might be some issues. Let's wait and see if it gets fixed. Let's ignore it for now. Then in our CR folder, in Quick Start, we drag it into the scene. It seems he is using the setup here. We can see his root node here. This is his root node. He probably fixed it through this. We can click here. He probably fixed this using this thing. Here it should check whether this exists, whether this root node exists. If this root node exists, it will attach it. If it does not exist, it might set itself as a root node. That should be the idea. After this series of executions, okay, then you can see this component has actually inherited from UMeshComponent. UMeshComponent is inherited from UPremicComponent. UPremicComponent is inherited from USynComponent. SynComponent is a syn component. It is a component that can be transferred. Then going further up, it truly inherits from UActor component. In fact, many of our backpacks directly inherit from UActor component. Because our backpack may not be rendered in the scene, its instance does not exist in the scene. But for some static meshes or skeletal meshes, or some collision related, it is probably called inheritance using component. Yes. Good. Now we can drag it in. Let's set its position to 0, 0, 0. That might not be good. Let's give it 150. Now let's start this project. We can take a look. It doesn't have a WOG mode right now. It should generate a default pun for us. Something like that. Right, there's sound here, but we can ignore it. The sound in the scene, you saw it. It is moving up and down, moving slowly up and down. And at the same time, it is also rotating. So what do we do next? Actually, the correct way to do this should be done like this. This is it. If you want to change this, the object inside it, then we can do this. You can see this kind of approach is usually what we call strain. We use it. You copy from here. Should be called copy. Reference. Then we come to this place, come into our project. It actually copies this path. Right. You can compare. It is actually this path. And this label in front, it indicates what kind of class it is. This class, actually, if you don't write this class, it's completely fine, because this is for us to see. Then keep it consistent with the following. Now, let's try to change it. Replace it with his. We copy its reference. Actually, by this point, we are already done. Now, it's just some extended content. Okay, let's slow down a bit. Then here we can note that we need to save here. We saved our level. Let's close it. Okay. Here, we replace this value in. Obviously, here it just replaces it and goes out the back. This one looks different. This is a clone. This is a copy. We can switch it here. Okay, now let's just launch it. Actually, we can also expose these two parameters. Expose these two parameters. We will do a unified exposure later. We'll expose them uniformly later. You see it naturally becomes a ring. Then we can launch this project. Right. Actually, it is also rotating. Maybe we can't see it clearly from here. You can take a look at this. Right. you can see it is also rotating. So this is actually a form of hard coding, and this approach is highly not recommended. Highly not recommended, and you should not do it this way. Next, let's talk about the correct approach, how it should be done. Okay? Good. So far, no issues. The correct way is to do it like this. So we do this. We want to reuse the original code as much as possible, but we make a tiny change. Here we give it a FloatingActor modify, meaning a modified version. Okay, then we refresh it. Of course, this is just a brush here. We actually still need to brush the project here. Okay. Then we directly reload this place. But at this point, it definitely won't compile. Because you have two, we can try compiling. Because you have two classes with the same name, and all the code in here is completely wrong. So the correct approach is to modify. It will report errors for it. So note that we may need to modify many places here. But after you modify it a few times, you will know which places not to change. Obviously, this is our UBT file. That is our GenDN.cpp file. You definitely need to change the. So this is the class name. This definitely needs to be changed. And similarly, we switch back here. This part, right? This part also needs to be changed. Then you can take a look. Our build.cs here. Actually, this part should be fine. Then we can change this part. Here, the constructor needs to be changed. And this is the method name. We also need to change the method name. Okay, basically after making the changes, we'll let it recompile. This compilation should pass now. Okay, there are many errors here, right? Let's see what errors there are. Obviously, this part wasn't changed, right? Yes. There are still errors at this point. Let's continue checking. Obviously, when pasting here, we missed some parts, right? It's fine. This is normal. It should be like this. Because we're missing an A. This error is actually quite common. At this point, it recognizes that there is no problem because this part does not have a prefix, and these all need to have prefixes. So the correct approach is actually like this. We should first expose this property. It actually, in this place, it's a tape map. You can see it requires a class like this. Actually, we can write it like this. We can write it like this. Here we give it a new property. We let it, for example, blueprint visible and editable. Edit anywhere. Then cartograph. Cartograph, let's call it XG. Okay, let's do it this way here. And actually, we can use this. We should use it. It's more appropriate for a scene like this. Actually, using subclass offer is more suitable. Here it is a template. You should just pass it. Using it is actually more appropriate. Let's call it Lumashtu. Okay. There are some errors here. Okay, it's recognized. It probably wasn't recognized just now, so we won't write it like this here. We will write it like this here. So if mesh is not empty, that is, if mesh2 exists, then we will directly set it in. Let me take a look. Detect mesh. Let me see how to write this part. Oh, we can't use the subclass up here. Shouldn't use it here. We can just use a resource pointer. This should be fine. If I make it exist, we will directly place this mesh here. Okay, then let's expose these two parameters. Let's check the documentation, how it names this parameter. Actually, the parameter it uses is here. Let's put it in the public section. This one is not needed. If it's okay. It gives 20 here, right? Let's replace this earth with flow speed. Here, let's replace this with rotation speed. So now we actually have 3 parameter variables that we can configure. Let's check what result we get when we run it in Blueprint. There's an error on one side. Let's take a look. I'll solve it like this here. It should be like this. Okay, let's restart. We shouldn't use this. Sometimes you might look at the game mode, etc. We'll put it in the open area later. He really likes using hard-code values, because during this demo, the code is very clear and straightforward, and it's pure C++. It's more appropriate, but in practice, we wouldn't write it this way. Then here we find Quick Start. You can see that clicking it again does nothing. This detail panel should be unresponsive. You have to do it this way. We need to create a BP. Then we put it into this Quick Start. Then we give it a BP. Now we create it. After creating it, actually, you can specify it directly here, right? But we won't specify it here. Let's find some parameters here. In the class defaulters, let's check let it match. How do we import xt here? Here we specify it like this. You can see that this time we specify a shape like this cylinder. You can see it in this viewport. It actually doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Then we have 2 parameters here. Let's take a look at the classification of these parameters. If it hasn't been changed, it should be here. Let's check the speed. Floating vector. See where this floating vector is. Or let's search for it this way. Like this. It can be found. Let's change it to 50. We'll give a speed on this side. Let's set a rotation speed, make it faster, give it a dump. This way, we drag it into the scene. Then you will see. Although it's not visible here. We started. It seems not to. Let's check what the reason is. Let's hit it and take a look. Let's specify it. It seems to have given an empty value here. This proves that our writing is incorrect. Yes, because it has actually already been constructed. In that case, we can write it like this. Wait a moment, let's write it like this. Let's move this code. Let's move this code here. Now let's move it into begin play. Let's run it again and take a look. Okay, let's move it into begin play. Let's check it again now. Hey, you'll see it's there now, right? Yes, so this is probably a timing issue. Right, that is to say, even though you put it here, because the child is placed in the constructor when you are in the constructor, it hasn't assigned the properties yet, so it doesn't actually use the properties you assigned. You assigned its properties in this blueprint. In fact, it didn't use your settings here, because during construction, it has already skipped this stage, so you need to put this in begin play. The advantage of this is that you can, in this, select here, right? You no longer need to take this piece of code. We can take a look. Take this piece of code and do it like this. Encode. Copy it like this. You don't need to copy the encoded reference. And then paste it here. And then execute the related operations. And by picking up assets through Blueprint like this. This is a typical division of labor between Blueprint and C++. And we usually call it data-driven. We can take this bit here. This price is only available in the editor instance. Then, if in that blueprint editing area, you must edit defaults to have it. This editor instance will change it faster for everyone. A bit faster. Okay? This is how it usually is. Look. Then, these things I need to talk about, and actually, it's like how do we usually do it? Actually, you'll encounter this a lot later on. It's the definition of this component. The definition of this component. We'll put it in C, plus. But the parameter adjustments for the component, the adjustments of these variables, we will be in Blueprint. So this should be the content I want to demonstrate to you. Okay, we will stop here for this lesson. Thank you, everyone.